Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. I am your host, Patty Rose. My guest today is Sam Wartenby, aka Sammy Warm Hands. Sam, welcome to the show.
You gotta out me like that, use my real name and shit.
Right. The cat's out of the bag. So this is really cool. I've been trying to do this for a long time. I've been trying to get you on for an interview, and I could hide this fact, but you literally reached out to me 10 minutes ago, and you're like, "Let's do it right now." So this is really cool to have you. We've got a lot to talk about. You are a busy man in the creative world. Yes. You know, doing all kinds of different genres of music, and it's really cool to have you on as a guest.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
So let's just start off with what you're the most known for is your hip hop work, I would believe, under the name Sammy Warm Hands, and your website, which is going to be in the show notes. All of this information will be in the show notes. Is take92.com. So Take92 kind of encompasses it all. It's like your record label, your creative label. Is that correct?
Yeah, Take92 started in 2005 as my recording studio. And over the years, I realized that, you know, I was not only producing the music and mixing and mastering, but it's like I'm doing the art direction. I'm doing the photography. I'm doing the music videos. I'm doing the PR. Like, this is a label, you know? And so it didn't take long before I kind of rebranded it as that. And, you know, whether I'm putting out my stuff or a friend of mine or whatever, you know, it's all been under Take92 since 2005.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, and you really do have a plethora of different genres. So I want to start really far back in the beginning. I think off air, you had told me 1998 was when you started making punk rock music.
Yeah. I've done a few years of like talent shows and just little stuff here and there as a child, you know, from like third grade, fourth grade. And then started my first real band though in 98. And we played punk and hardcore until 2007, I think is when we broke up. So that was, we started as EPD. We had a lot of different names in the beginning, and then that was Eugene Punk Department because, you know, we were children.
Nice.
and then eventually that turned into This Day's End, and it became a lot more like progressive and hardcore elements kind of fused in there. And that's when we kind of got big. It was really like my first true love kind of, you know, like it was the way that I learned how all of this works, you know.
Right. Now, when you say big, you've been able to tour the country. Were you doing that with the punk bands, or is that more kind of came after with hip hop?
That was sort of why we broke up. The first band, you know, I had put together this. I mean, we made this record we were really proud of, and you know, to this day, it's, you know, it's probably in my top 5, at least in my top 10 records I've ever made, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a long list. So
yeah.
And yeah, we had put a year's worth of effort into writing these songs, going up and with our producer in Seattle and doing a week of demos. We demoed the whole record, and we came back and, you know, we were doing it right, you know, like a real, you know, like a major label band would do, or like you go do your pre-production, you take your notes, you go back in the rehearsal room and fine tune it, you know. And with that This Day's End record, we were doing it, and then we all go up to Seattle to make it, and to make the record. And, you know, I'm sleeping on the floor of the studio for 6 weeks while we're doing this. And, you know, the guys basically, as soon as each of their parts were done, they just left. And all of a sudden I was just there alone. And we had planned, like, when the record drops, we're going to hit the road. You know, we played all these shows, like we could headline Wow Hall. You know, we were getting like 300 plus heads at all of our shows, man. And then when I got home and the record's being mastered, everyone had like moved out of their houses. You know, we're 19 years old and they've got girlfriends and other priorities or whatever. And I was like, you guys ready to hit the road? And like, I don't know. I got this new apartment. I got rent. I got this side job. And I'm like, really? And so I kind of bailed, and I was like, no, I need to be moving forward. So,
Which is,
so that was
it's a natural progression into hip hop when you want to do solo work, you know, and I can relate to that because I started making music just really for fun in hip hop, but I've always kind of done it my own way. But we had a crew with Uncle Nancy called the Antidope, me, Uncle Nancy, and Billy D, which is 3 people that should not make hip hop music, which is why it was fun.
Yeah.
But after a couple years of doing that, I can relate because it was like I kind of was getting away from wanting to do on their schedule. So I'm sure that that's kind of what it comes down to. It's like, oh, I want to do it, but not right now. And then it just inspires you to go your own way. So how did the hip hop begin? I mean, was it kind of for me was I wanted to get into making punk rock music, but unlike you, who does have a talent playing music, playing bass, playing guitar, recording, I'm not a musician. I'm self-taught and I'm a button masher. And so for me, it was natural to do it in a kind of a more hip hop thing because that's kind of more accepted, where you can use loops and that kind of thing. But how did that progression for you start where you kind of transitioned into doing a little bit more hip hop work? Did you just have the ciphers with the friends and then you're kind of like, I'll jump in on this. I'm a good writer.
It was never a cipher thing. I'm not a partier. I'm not a freestyler. You know, it was never that. It was basically in high school, you know, as the band is starting to do well, I'm also discovering underground rap for the first time. And so that is, you know, I'd always been obsessed with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC and stuff, but now I'm getting like Hieroglyphics and Idea and Abilities, Atmosphere, Sage Francis. You start to hear people talking about different shit than what you hear on major records. And at that point, like when I hear Sage Francis say, I'm driving, or I go to Fugazi shows requesting Minor Threat songs,
right?
You know, or Idea saying like, I don't drink alcohol, don't go to the mall, all these things. And I was like, man, these guys are like punk rockers, you know, like we're singing
punk rock, right? Sage Francis is doing a song with Bad Religion, you know, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And I started to really see the cross section of content. And so at my school, we had this thing called Hip Hop Club. It was like North Eugene Hip Hop Club. And I joined it and, you know, we'd be making mixtapes and hanging out and whatever and just kind of discovering music. And these dudes from the Hip Hop Club wanted to make a record. They had a group and they were mostly just rapping over stolen beats for the most part, but they didn't know anybody who actually made records, like put a CD out except me and my band. And so they came to me and I took them to the studio that I normally work with and my engineer, Eric Munch, and I sort of co-produced their record. That was my first time producing for anybody else. And I rapped on, no, I think I played music on a couple songs, but I rapped 2 verses on one. And that was really the beginning of it. And from then I was bugging my friends like, yo, what if we had a side project? What if we did this, you know? And like nobody was doing it. And so it wasn't until years later, I give very long answers. Have you noticed?
No, this is a podcast. That's the point.
Yeah. So I'm working a job years later in 2007. And my band is broken up. I had started Dead Fucking Serious, my punk band that I'm still in. And that wasn't going great either. I was like, man, you know what? We need to like fuck this like heavy breakdown, tough guy shit. Like we don't want to play with those bands. Let's play some fast, straight up, old school hardcore, you know, real punk rock shit. And I was like, I bet this will be a breath of fresh air. People will be waiting for this. They were not. They did not. Nobody liked it. And so I'm really bummed. I'm in a bad place in my life. And I'm listening to nothing but fucking Ice Cube and Immortal Technique and, you know, just Tupac, just angry rap shit. And I start making beats and kind of out of necessity. And then I get some from a couple friends of mine. And then I put together this album called 99 Years. And it's just me like going off on some gangster rap satire shit.
Sure.
Like I'm flipping NWA lyrics and Ice-T shit. And, you know, just it was pure shock value to be as nasty as I could,
Right.
as to make myself laugh. And I didn't make it with the intent for anyone to hear it. But then when when I finished it, my friend who had made a lot of the beats, he's like, "Wait, you're not putting this out?" I'm like, "Fuck no, I don't want anybody to hear this shit." You know, it's just like fucking the worst language, you know, line pushing edgelord shit that I could come up with. And he's like, "Well, what if I mix and master it, you know, for free? Would you put it out then?" I'm like, "Fine." And so I made this CD. And I pressed them and I just gave them away for free at DFS shows. And I had so many more people come up to me about that than the shit I was actually selling.
It makes like what you're passionate about more popular. It's so funny how that works.
No, I was furious. I was like, "You fucking like this? This is terrible. Like, this is not music. This is fucking me going home and like talking about running over people who, you know, started fights at our shows, and you know, like this, I've got like sound effects of me fucking shooting people, like the Mr. Appliance guy, you know, like it's just, this is nonsense. Why do you like this?" And they're quoting my bars to me. I'm like, "Are you fucking serious? Like, I put my heart in the band and you like this stupid shit?" And so one track on that record, and this is the real origin right here. One track was, the beat was from Webb the Free Range Human, and his name is Gabe Morley. He was from Yob and Rye Wolves and all these metal bands, and we had both been totally burned out on bands, and we're like, "Fuck it, it's over. I'm just making what I want to make for myself. You know, I'm done trying to please people, right?" And he had done one song on that record, and we had this conversation one day about you're wearing a Batman shirt. The studio has really turned into some Batman shit in here. I don't know if you can see, like, the room is insanely
Batman. And we're going to get to that in a bit about that podcast where you've gone all in with it, but yeah.
So I asked him, he's got this Frank Miller Batman tattoo. And I said, "Have you ever sampled and made a beat out of the Danny Elfman theme song?" And he's like, "Oh, I would love to," you know, because we were always talking Beasties and Public Enemy and like sample heavy shit. And I was like, "All right, well, I have it." And so I brought the CD. I got it on my lunch break and I gave it to him. And I had the late shift. So he goes home at 5 o'clock. He comes back at 7 before he closed, and he gives me a CDR. He's like, "Yo, check it out." He already made a beat.
Nice.
We put it on in the warehouse, crank it up, and it's like Paul's Boutique meets Tim Burton. I'm like, "This is the shit." And we looked at each other and we're like, "Did we just start a group?" And so to this day, me and him have cranked out so much music together. And I love that dude with all my heart. And that was The Illusionist. And The Illusionist ran from 2008. We wrote 20 songs in 2 months, maybe a month.
Yeah.
And we released 18 of them on our first record that year. But yeah, we that was the group that got me touring. That was the group that changed my life and my whole trajectory into hip hop. So
right. And then you get validated by a lot of the MCs that you admire, you know, where they're starting to want to record songs with you. I know you reach out, you've recorded songs with an amazing amount of talented underground artists.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, what's the most, it's kind of hard to start listing because you don't want to leave anybody out, but who's the first that comes to mind that was just an honor for you to work with?
Well, I mean, really what started all that was in The Illusionist, because it was very much, long story short, I'm bad at that. Long story short, we played with Idea and Abilities, and that was the first time, you know, in This Day's End, we had opened for all these great bands, you know, but with the rap shit, we were just fucking around. And so that was the first chance of opening for somebody that we really loved for a long time. And so today I'm on Crush Kill Recordings. That's Idea's label that he started. And meeting them. Webb made a whole remix album for them that I was featured on, and that was like my first time really, getting to work on something that I just couldn't believe I was part of.
You're pinching yourself, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and from there, I just started to meet so many people as we toured and traveled, and we make more records. And I think the one that really kicked off me getting a lot of regular like features though was Blueprint from Rhymesayers.
Right.
Because we had met at a few shows, and I did a mixtape, and I just cranked out a few stolen beats. I called it One Take Lunch Break because I would literally drive home on an hour-long break. It'd take me 10 minutes to get here. I would drive home. I would write a verse, record it, like sight unseen,
Wow.
and then drive back to work and eat in the car. And I recorded a song every day for a week, and so I put that out. And I think it was like the third time I went to a Blueprint show. I was like, "Hey, I rapped over one of your tracks. Like, check this out." And after that, anytime I go to see him, he would be like, "Yo, it's Sammy and Gabe and Webb. Like, what's up, guys?" And he knew us, and he was real friendly. And we had him on our Death of a Salesman album by The Illusionist. That was like our final like proper album, is the fifth or sixth one, and we were really starting to build something. And that fucking song came out so good because he really got what we were going for. And that was another thing I'd learned from working with local rappers too, that you got to choose, if you want to work with someone, you have to then wait for the right content for that person to really shine.
Sure.
Because there'd be some that were okay, or some where people passed. But after that track with Print, it was really like, oh man, like this is really, really exciting, because I'm a collector, and these guys have been part of my life through my record collection for years, right? And so, that leads to the next show and the next opportunity and the next collab. And so it's like, if I play a show with somebody like Mike and Nine from the Freestyle Fellowship, and it was a great turnout, I booked and promoted the show, and I remember being on stage doing this double time track, and Mike and Nine is having a conversation in the back of the room. And I see him, because I'm like, don't fuck up, don't fuck up, don't fuck up, because he's a fucking legend right there. And he puts his finger up, like, hold on a second, to the guy he was talking to. And he walks through the crowd to the front of the stage at Lucky's. And I'm like, oh my God, don't fuck up, don't fuck up. And I'm just rapping my ass off. And he starts leaning in and listening and vibing. And, he's just like egging me on. And, that made my day. But then I was like, man, if he really cares, the next time I played with him, he came up to me and talked to me about my set again. And I was like, hey man, like, can I get your phone number? Can we work something out,
Yeah.
And all it was me just going like, I'm not cold calling people I never met.
But if you have that green light, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to be too shy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, if, get to play a show opening for Fashion, it's like, we are widely different styles, but like, I think I got a track, man, that'd be really good. Can we talk about that? Like, yeah, sure. And so it's been really great to, again, these people who've been in my record collection all these years, and I really respect them, and they've been the ones to inspire me to make these records. That's the key. It's like, that's the shit I'm listening to when I'm writing,
that you're inspired by.
Blueprint and Fashion and Mike and Nine. So like, to actually do that and then have them be on my records and have some permanence to that moment, that's great. It's history,
And that's the cool thing with all your experience in punk rock music. And then I want to talk in a little bit about even how you've done kind of even different genres of music, kind of like a softer acoustic, style song. I think that in hip hop, the artists that you've been able to work with and have been inspired by, the reason that they respected your work is because of your originality. It's because that you do it your own way. There's not an artificial bone in your body. It's like, this is who I am. And I think people like that, because I'm the same way, where I'll listen to someone's music and I'll be inspired by it, but I'm not copying it. It's because it's just, you make it your own. You have this amalgamation of everything, and it all comes together and creates something cool. So we talked. Go ahead.
I just have to touch on that, is that a lot of musicians, they'll be like, oh yeah, I wake up every morning and I have my breakfast at the piano and I work out something for the day, or like I start a beat every morning when I get up, and like, I am not that person. Right. I am, as a lyricist, well, hey, coming back to the first band, something I didn't realize at the time that I realized through rapping was that I was the lead songwriter. I was always writing lyrics, writing music, writing arrangements. And so therefore I was the lead singer. I shouldn't have been the lead singer. Cross was a better lead singer. I should have been writing the songs and let him sing them, right? But I'm the lyricist. And so I'm always thinking in those terms. And now that I've flashed back, within the flashback, I forgot what the fuck I was talking about. But
it's all good. About being original, about kind of how everything comes together. Yeah.
And so when I do write, though, it's not that I am trying to do a writing exercise necessarily, unless it's one take lunch break or sure, something random like that. Mostly, I only write when I feel like it's bursting at the seams. I got to get it off my chest.
Right. And it just comes to you at random times,
It's not homework. It's like, I think when people hear my shit, they can tell there's a passion in it. That's not just some phony attitude, but it's actually like I had to say that.
Right.
That's how I write.
Yeah, and I think by doing those one take lunch breaks and things like that are kind of exercises, nice, that it pushes you to become a better writer. And so by doing all the different genres too, you learn things that work and things that don't, and it definitely broadens your skill set. So we talked about the punk rock, we talked about the hip hop. You did a song called Other Desert Cities about your cousin that was really powerful. And one of the things, you're not only making music, but you make really good videos. And this video was really just clip art with letters, words, if I remember right. But it's really powerful because you're reading the lyrics on the screen, and you can tell us a little bit about that story. So about Other Desert Cities.
Yeah, that one's complicated. I'll mention the video because you brought that up. Adam Dunn is a visual artist that comes out of Minneapolis. I have a lot of friends I work with in Minneapolis because that's where Crushkill is based. And so I've met a lot of people there, and he just does extraordinary work. He's done a number of the animated lyric videos for me. So that's all he's doing. As for the song itself, I have in the beginning, again, it was very like rough, raw, just jokes and shock value. And over time, I started to realize the limitless potential of this art form for real storytelling and shit that really is deep in me. And so that was one of those moments where I was scheduled to leave for tour. And it was a very, very important tour. It was me, Carnage the Executioner, and DJ Abilities. And we were out performing at screenings of The World Has No Idea. And so we were out there, and for the first time, bringing this to clubs and theaters for fans to see, this film that we were part of that's a tribute to, our friend, our idol, our mentor
Right.
idea. Very, very important moment. And, you know, obviously a big opportunity for me as well, because those were and still are the biggest shows that I've ever played on a tour. You know, I don't sell out every night. I sell out fucking never. And so those shows were great. And the night before that, I found out that my cousin, his son, Hayden, was 13 and he had committed suicide. And this was late at night, and I called and I woke up my parents, and I drove over to their house, and, you know, we didn't know what to do, but we went to see my cousin, Jason, you know, Hayden's dad, and just be with him and talk. And so we talked through the whole night, you know, and when we were getting ready to leave, I said something about canceling you know, like, yeah, I'm sure I'm canceling the tour. Like, what do you guys need? How can I be here for you? And they were like, what? No, fuck out of here. Like, you're going, you're
Right.
doing it. This is important. You are going. I'm like, yeah, but this is life and death. You know, this is family. What are you talking about? And they're like, I mean, honestly, what's done is done. You go out there and, you know, let's do something positive right now.
Right.
Being sad isn't going to do anything about it. And so I had a 2-day drive to Phoenix, which was our first show. And I was alone. And on the first day I drove, and I stayed with my friend, my booking agent, Skeptik, in the Bay Area. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this shit. And we had a good talk.
Just the whole tour you're talking about? You're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Like, what kind of headspace am I in right now to perform, you know? Because, you know, with the tour, I rehearse my set weeks in advance. It's all dialed in. Everything is exactly perfect, you know, timing, you know, song choices, all of that shit, sequencing, it's all dialed in and ironed out. And so I'm like, what? How the fuck am I don't even know, you know. I felt like I needed to start from the ground up or something. And it was already a little more of a personal set because, you know, it's the idea
Right.
tribute, you know, kind of memorial tour. And so I had an acoustic break in the middle where I covered one of his songs. And on the second day, when I was driving, there's that nothingness between LA and Phoenix. And one of the exit signs, you know, you see like all the windmills generating the power.
Right.
One of the exit signs said, "Other desert cities." And as I passed that, words started coming, and I couldn't write anything down. So I used my voice recorder, and I'd record like 2 lines at a time. And so the rhyme begins with, "I drive by windmills and wonder how it feels when," you know, and I'm narrating this drive as I'm trying to figure out, like, what the fuck is life? What am I supposed to do?
Where do I go from here? Yeah.
What happened, you know, where the family just gets a big gut punch, you know, and so I wrote this verse and I read it off my phone on stage that night. And it was really, really hard. And somebody got it on tape. Carnage had a video guy on that tour. His name was Andy. And he gave me the video of it. And I was like, damn, this is heavy. And like the crowd was amazing. Like it couldn't have been at a better type of event. You know, they were so full of love and they were vulnerable after watching the film.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, people in the crowd are crying. I'm crying, you know, I'm walking off stage and strangers are hugging me. And, you know, I go to the merch table and like for the rest of the night, people will come up and they'll be like, "Oh man, that song hit me because my dad committed suicide. Right. Let me tell you this story." And I was like, oh my God. And so like all night I'm having these talks, and the next night and the night after that. And now I'm off script, you know, I'm not reading it. and I'm performing it every night, and people keep coming up to me, and you know, we just have these amazing conversations, and they're sharing so much, and it was like, wow, I could have never got this staying at home just being sad. And so when I got home, I organized his funeral, and you know, the photo, the slideshow, and all that stuff that you do, and I wrote another verse, and so the first verse was very much in that moment, kind of processing, and the second verse is how that experience helped me get through it, and how all those strangers really gave me, you know, some strength in that moment. And I recorded that song with Danny G from Double Dragon, and I gave him this Nick Drake song. I don't know if you know him. He's a folk singer from the 70s. Mm-hmm. I gave him this song to sample. They had these really melancholy strings, and we just had a really simple beat that he made for me. And I recorded that, and I asked the family. I sent a group message, and I was like, hey, because I got a lot of feedback when I posted a video of me performing it, the first verse of it at the shows, a cappella. And I told them, I was like, hey, I'm recording this for my album. I want to make a proper video with the lyrics and everything that we can share on, I think it was on his birthday, because it was coming up. And so the family, everybody like actually kicked in a little bit and to get that video made.
Oh, wow.
And so that was kind of like just a love letter from everybody. So we all have a thing to share and listen to, you know, and think of him. And so, yeah, it's a
really powerful song, and the video is really good. And, you know, I got to be honest, you do so much stuff that I have so many friends that are talented artists that I don't get to completely immerse myself in all of it, you know, because it's too much content. And that video, for whatever reason, you posted it, or maybe it was a memory that because a lot of times you'll share the memories of it when it was past. Mm-hmm. So it might not have even been the year that it had happened, but you had posted it. And I remember I was watching the video on the bus, just because I was catching the bus to work. And that one just was like, I'm like, wow, this guy's really talented. And again, I can relate to it. It's like the stories like that are so personal. When you open up and share that story on stage, people are like, that's what they'll remember from that show, even if you're the opening act and they went to see something that was much bigger. And that's what's really rewarding. So that's really cool. So yeah, so I'm going to put a link in the show notes to your to your YouTube channel.
Cool. Thank you.
That's the one where people should really go. And that song, again, is called Other Desert Cities. And it's about your cousin's son, Hayden Thompson. So we want to give a shout out to Hayden. And then there's so much we could talk forever about your music. You've done so much stuff, and you will continue to make new music. And you've worked with such great local talent in Oregon that there's almost too many people to mention. But I also, because you're on my podcast, I want to give a plug before we get out of here about your podcasts. So the Take 92 podcast, and like we had said before, take92.com is your website that encompasses everything. And you had started a podcast where you then interview people in the music world and entertainment, mostly music, but also outside of that in film and different things that you are. Yeah. It's crazy. I've heard you say it. You're like, I can't believe these people say yes. I just reach out to them. I ask them to do these interviews. Yeah. And like, they say yes. I mean, I think one of the noteworthy ones for me personally was Ryan Green, who is the sound engineer for Fat Records. And so Fat Records, if nobody is aware, and if you're not aware, I don't know how we're friends, is Fat Records is Fat Mike's label. Fat Mike is the lead singer from NoFX, and NoFX is my absolute favorite band. And I noticed that the very beginning of every video is the same beginning from The Decline.
Yes.
With your music. And so there's little homages. That's an homage. That's not stealing. That's a paying homage. I guarantee. I mean, I'm sure that's where you're at with that.
Yeah. It's a 2.7 second video that like really quick flashes through all of my music videos with our logo over it. And I was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna put on that.
Yeah. Because it's so iconic for No Effects. It's like a freaking cult. The people that like No Effects, they either don't get it or they're like insanely in love with everything they've done, even the shitty stuff.
And for me, like that song is big. Like if you do go to my YouTube channel, the song with the most views is my acoustic cover of The Decline from like 10 years ago.
Right.
Like, I mean, I fucking love that song. Like
it's amazing. I got to see them perform it live. I think you were at that show as well.
I was.
Yeah. So the Take 92 podcast, tell us a little bit about that and how that came to be. And that's a huge, I mean, it's pretty incredible. Some of the guests that you've been able to get.
I started it, I think, in 2015, and I had always really enjoyed when we got a record coming out and, we call up our friend DL at NRQ, and he had the Sunday night local program on the rock station. And so he would play local bands, and I'd be like, hey, we got a new one coming out. Like, could we do a segment? And be like, yeah, why don't you come down to the studio? And then we started doing that at campus radio station. And so whenever we had something come out, I'd hit up Snake Peters over there, and he had a hip hop show. It was like 10 to 12 at night or something, Friday nights. And he'd have us on, we'd interview us, and like me, I never shut the fuck up. I love to talk.
Right. It's perfect for a podcast.
I love to talk music, and I'm like sadly kind of a narcissist, and so I just like I love this whole little world that I'm a part of. And one day I was just like, I kind of want to just give this a shot. Like I always thought, like I want to do radio or something like that, and I was like, man, I live in a recording studio. Let's just do it. And so I had my best friend Crosby over, and we recorded a long 2-parter where we just bullshitted about music. And I got some feedback, and people liked it. And then very quickly, I think by the 3rd episode, you can hear me starting to become like a more solid interviewer. And as the show went on, now it's up to like 70. I released 71 episodes, and I have more on the way. Mine are spaced out because, as getting guests is difficult. And also I have a narrow focus on my show. And so if you're not in, punk rock or underground hip hop or whatever, and it got to the point where, I drop every 2 weeks when I'm running a season. But it got to the point where I'd have these gaps in the show. I'm like, fuck, like no one's coming through on tour that I can have to come interview. And I started bringing my laptop to shows, and we'd talk in the green room or something. I did Gift the Gab that way. I had Cast One like drive around in the van with me, and I tried to get as creative as possible. And then eventually I was like, I'm just start calling motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And so that's
starting to get there,
That's how I leveled up, was just going, okay, I've had a lot of great interviews on this show. We've had just some excellent conversations, some notable names in the underground. I'm like looking at things like, the 20th anniversary of The Decline is coming up. You mentioned Ryan Green. I was like, I would love to talk to this dude. I follow him on Instagram. Let me hit him up, see if he wants to talk about that. And with all of them, you can send him a link and be like, hey, here's the show. Here's some similar guests. What do you think? And just like one leads to another. And now I'm strictly a phone interview show. And it's fucking awesome because I get to talk to people who, some I've met a couple times, like Bill Stevenson. Some I have never really met before, like Trevor Riley from A Wilhelm Scream, and we wind up having these awesome conversations, never met each other, but because I am so thoroughly familiar with their work, we still have a basis for conversation. We have enough common ground that like if they mention some oddball record and the guy who worked on it, I just know all that shit because I've been listening to it my whole life.
Because you're a real fan. Yeah.
Yeah. And so cool. Like we had surprising success doing that. I don't know. I had surprisingly easy conversations with these people that I, didn't really know. And so I just started recording a new season. And I'll tell you that another Epitaph band, formerly Epitaph Band, is gonna kick off the new season. That's Death by Stereo. So.
That's cool. That's pretty exciting. So yeah, the Take 92 podcast, which you can find on every podcast streaming site. One of my favorite things to do is to interview podcast hosts because, like you said, there's going to be no shortage of conversation because we like to hear ourselves talk.
You're doing a lot of waiting today, aren't you?
It's fine. Actually, these impromptu episodes have tended to be that way, and I kind of like it because I've been on my podcast for how many hours? It's ridiculous. It's time for other people to talk. So another thing, it's impossible not to mention Batman. As you can see, we mentioned it before. I purposely jumped up. I was sitting on the couch. My girlfriend was watching Gilmore Girls. I was staring at the ceiling. And you said, that's a fact. That's a fact. And you said, you messaged me. You're like, hey, you had talked to me about doing this podcast over the last few months. Let's see if we can do it right now. So I hopped up and I was like, I can't wear the same shirt I was wearing yesterday. So I threw on the Batman shirt. And so the Bat Fan Addict, it's spelled Bat Fan Addict. BFApod.com, BFAPOD.com. And again, the link for this will be in the show notes as well. So that is about your love of Batman, and you interview people specifically about Batman. But a lot of the times it's just you and a co-host, correct?
Yeah, it's actually a reviews show. And so I went out to a convention. I started the last few years getting really into Comic-Con because I've always been obsessed with Batman, and my collection's grown and grown. And I started going to more conventions, and I went to San Antonio, Texas to meet Michael Keaton. And I was really excited about it. And he gave a Q&A panel there. And I recorded it on my phone. And it was like nobody had it because there was like no photos allowed, no nothing, whatever. And I just had my phone sitting on my lap face down so you couldn't see it was on. I was recording it. And I was like, man, I keep doing these random Batman episodes of the Take 92 podcast. I'm like, and it just does not belong. And I hit up my friend Evan, who was in The Illusionists, and I hit up my friend Ben from Dead Fucking Serious. And, those are probably my more comic centric friends. And I was like, yo, I'm sitting here in the airport. I have just listed off the top of my head 50 episodes that we could do if we reviewed a movie and then a comic and then a movie and then a comic, and we all come from like different backgrounds on it. And so I think it could be really fun. I don't have to look for a guest every week. We just hang out and cool. Talk about the shit we would have already been watching in our free time or reading anyway. And so it's been so much fun. And honestly, it's the only positive thing in my COVID life. It's the only thing where I actually get to forget my troubles and laugh with my friends. It's been great to cool. Be able to do these virtual hangs, kind of like I'm doing with you, with Ben and Evan, and just crack jokes and geek out about some shit that doesn't fucking matter, because boy, do I need that right now.
Right.
So it's really fun.
Well, Sammy Warm Hands, my neighbors are starting to get a little rowdy. I'm pretty sure they're going to start playing some country rap. So I think we're going to cut it at about the 45-minute mark. I really encourage anybody listening to check out Sammy Warm Hands, Take92.com, the Take 92 podcast, the Bat Fan Addict podcast. All of the links will be in the show notes. I'm going to put a link to the YouTube as well. I can't forget that. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget that. But it's really cool that, to have you on. And once this whole COVID thing passes and we can actually be close to each other, I'd like to have you in the studio and we can do kind of an update on what you're up to, because you're constantly putting out new material. So for anybody listening, follow also Sammy Warm Hands on Instagram and on Facebook, and I'll tag those as well, because that's where you'll find out all the new information. So we're going to end this with a song. What did you want to say real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out that I haven't promoted it at all because it came out on like the May 28th or 9th. I dropped a new mixtape just kind of as a surprise. I've been working through this whole COVID thing, but I had a 3-day weekend where I cranked out some stuff, and I had a bunch of, a lot of times you record a feature for somebody and then they never put their record out ever. And so I took some of those good verses back and put them on my own shit. And so I had made this sort of compilation of B-sides and misappropriated features or whatever.
Right.
And came up with this pretty cool record that I was pretty proud of. It's called Fighting Words, and I dropped it on take92.com, and then everyone saw that video of George Floyd, and I was like, I ain't promoting this. Like, fucking, let's march, let's donate, let's share information, and do the right thing. And so I have not promoted it at all since the day it came out. So check out Fighting Words.
Yeah. So this is a good opportunity to kind of plug that. So with the song that we chose is called Oxygen. So this is the song Oxygen from the album, the mixtape Fighting Words. Tell us a little bit about what Oxygen, the inspiration for that track.
I had come off a really hard year, but I was really positive. I was in a really good state of mind. And it was sort of, again, I was reaching a breaking point, and the title Oxygen comes from a line where I'm talking to my dad in the hospital. I tell him just to focus on his oxygen, because my dad almost died. My grandpa died in December, and then my dad was hospitalized in critical condition for like 6 or 7 days in January. And at the same time, my stepdad was diagnosed with melanoma.
Oh man.
And other problems that were at work. And, just all these things had added up one after another. And I felt like I just could not catch a break. And so it's this verse that is very condensed version of a lot of hard things that I was going through pre-coronavirus.
Sure.
And I hit up my friend Skeptik, again, who's my booking agent, and he raps in the group Double Dragon, and we've toured together a lot, and so we've had a lot of real personal conversations, and I was just like, hey man, I've said what I need to say, but I think you could add something to this. And he really brought his A game and dug deeper than I've ever heard before. So I was really proud of him, and I knew I made the right choice, and I think that we came up with something really cool.
So that's so it's on the mixtape Fighting Words. The track is called Oxygen. It's Sammy Warm Hands, and then you said featuring Skeptik.
Yeah, Skeptik from Double.
I'll make sure to get him on the credits. So yeah, so we're gonna end it with the song Sammy Warm Hands. Thank you very much for doing this on such short notice, especially.
Yeah, man.
I'm a big fan. I know you've been on the show before for like 1 minute. I was testing out my phone capabilities, which now I've actually just bought a mixer. I know that you record the phone with your phone, like you just use your phone, just put the microphone next to the iPhone.
I do. Yeah.
I was trying the iRig and some other different technology things, but these Zoom calls are actually really good for it too. And I wonder, but sometimes the delay is infuriating. But anyway, Sammy Warm Hands. This is really awesome. So thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Look at me, all grown up, responsible now, tying the string on the back of my father's hospital gown. Stepdad across town, melanoma on his skin, but we don't have to talk again, just focus on your oxygen. Lost again, I contemplate the consequence, try to find the confidence that's caught in my esophagus. Lost my grandpa without time to process, the world kept spinning, then a month later there's all this. Missing Kathy, cause today's the anniversary, we're doing alright. It's been a minute since you've heard from me, and perfectly time. With all the death and surgery, the thought of my cousin Hayden who shot himself occurred to me. His brother Riley shipping off to the Marines, potentially risking his life enlisted overseas. And then my first grade best friend was arrested for meth again. I need a minute just to fucking catch my breath again.
One foot in the grave, the other in another grave. I'm genuinely shocked I lived to see my current age. Always thought it would be my loss you'd have to mourn. The fire hasn't faded, but the glow is lukewarm. Loss on a level like this is just so new to me. I wish I had the strength at the time to give a eulogy. Would have been nice if the doctors had listened, paid some attention, maybe caught your condition, but they didn't. So now I go without a cousin, and your daughter lost her father, and I'm sick to my stomach, forcing air into lungs just to hear myself gasp. This pain should be far beyond someone her age's grasp. Now she's going through her teens, unsure how to react. Lily, I just want you to know I have your back. If there's ever anything in this life you feel you lack, it won't be love, I promise that.